Welcome, football fans, to your NFL Divisional Round Preview. We're going to try this one more time. I already did this intro once before. Most of you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. Mitch, I just tuned into the video. What are you talking about? But just know this, viewer out there, we're not playing around no more. Because now I'm fired up. Now I'm a little angry. Now I've got a chip on my shoulder. So you better be ready for the best preview of the NFL Divisional Round on the internet. If that sounds good, spike the like button and don't forget to subscribe to the BLV for more NFL. Weekly picks, previews, predictions, and more just like this. I'm angry. Shout out to the chat. Thank you for staying with me. NFL Divisional Round is my favorite weekend of the NFL season. It's the 8 best teams in the NFL, the 4 best in the AFC, the 4 best in the NFC, typically great quarterback play. I think we have some great quarterbacks here this weekend playing some football. I will say, on the surface, this is not the most appetizing divisional round of my life. We'll get into the reasons why. We'll dive into the matchups. We'll dissect it. Side of the football versus side of the football, as we always do here on the Bottom Line View. And I'll get to the reasons why. But this is my favorite weekend. I'm excited for it. I will be streaming every single game live on the channel. And if you guys haven't already and you don't know and you don't recognize that I do content for more than just the Bottom Line View, well, I want to give a shout out to Owner's Box Fantasy. Because earlier today, I posted a divisional round preview where I picked every game. And I also provided something unique in that video, prop picks for every game. So go check out Owner's Box Fantasy. I cover fantasy football all year long for them, my boys, over there on Owner's Box Fantasy. So go check out that video. Go subscribe to that channel. And if you're not already following me on Bleacher Report and you're watching my streams on Bleacher Report, go check out my BR content. I'm going to be on that thing 4 times this week. I was already on twice. We got 2 more to go, Thursday and Friday. We got a bunch of jabronis in the BR chat, so I need some of you to help me out and give some BLV love in the chat there too. I post every video here on the Bottom Line View as well, but it's always nice to see you guys live in the chat. So join me over there on BR. Just download the app and any NFL section of that app, you'll find me. Okay? You'll find me. That being said, it's divisional round. We've got 4 matchups. We've got Funky Lions fan, the Detroit Lions, at home versus the Washington upstart, rookie sensation, comeback kids, and the Commanders. We've got the Philadelphia Eagles, Big Al's Philadelphia Eagles, EAGLES Eagles versus at home, maybe in the snow, Saquon in the snow, versus the Hollywood Glitz and Glamour, Sean McCabo and Matthew Stafford versus Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown. That's going to be a great game. We also have the Houston Texans. Nobody believes they're any good, but they showed up last week. C.J. Stroud, Nico Collins, Joseph Mixon, Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, a nasty pass rush. They're in Arrowhead this week. They're playing Patrick Mahomes, playoff Kelsey, Stone Cold Chris Jones, and Andy Reid. Everyone thinks the Chiefs will win. We'll break that one down. And in the main event, they're saying it's as big as The Rock versus Stone Cold at WrestleMania. In one corner, we have the MVP, multi-time MVP. We've got a great running game. We've got a powerhouse of an offense, explosiveness, a opportunistic defense with plenty of vets. We've got one of the most dynamic quarterbacks that the league has ever seen. One of the best rushing and passing threats that the league has ever seen. And in the other corner, we've got Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. So looking forward to that main event. We're going to kick it off now. Gronk spiked the like button, guys, because I've already tried to do this already, bro. So YouTube's going to punish me for trying to do a live stream. So make sure you Gronk spike the like button because the last one got canceled. The last one got taken down already. So like the video, bro. Do me a favor. If you want to find where my bets are at, if you want to find where my picks are at, like my real money, where I'm going with these games, then Patreon is the place to go. That link is in the description as well. Okay? Let's go. Let's start. All right. The Kansas City Chiefs are at home in the first game of the weekend. Finally, and I mean finally, we get to watch the Kansas City Chiefs play some playoff football and play some football in general, competitively. Last time we saw them, they played the Denver Broncos and they didn't even want to be there. There was like third stringers playing. Carson Wentz, and I say Wentz because it's INTZ, interceptions, you know what I mean? So you've got the Chiefs at home versus the Houston Texans, the 4 seed, the team that a lot of people, they're picking the Chargers to beat the Texans in Houston, but the Texans showed up, and Texans fans let me know. And I have to say, bro, I'm sorry I didn't pick the Texans because you guys know I love the Texans, but the Texans didn't deserve to be picked. I'm going to be honest. What had the Texans shown me? Besides terrible offensive line play, inconsistent offense, horrific quarterback decision-making, inconsistent defense, horrific coaching. I mean, what had the Texans really shown me, bro? Come on. Be fair about it. Texans fans, you can't even jump on me for that, man. Come on, bro. So, yeah, the Texans won, but am I really supposed to be upset I didn't pick the Texans? No, I don't feel upset one iota, not one bit. Okay? That being said, everyone is going to pick the Chiefs. Everybody. Every single person alive that has a heartbeat is going to pick the Chiefs. Big Al, Singh, James Dean, Wiggy, Funky Lions fan, they're all picking the Chiefs, bro. I guarantee it. I guarantee every single one of them are picking the Chiefs. And I don't blame them. The Chiefs are the back-to-back Super Bowl champs. The Chiefs have Andy Reid, the best coach in football. The Chiefs have Steve Spagnuolo, the best DC in football. The Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes, the best winner in football. The Chiefs have playoff Kelsey, Taylor Swift, Voodoo Magic. And the Texans, what do they got? What do they have? They don't have Tank Dell no more. So let's look at the tail of the tape before we dive into the sides of the football. The Chiefs are the 6th best team in the NFL according to DVOA. Not first, not second, not third, not fourth, not fifth, 6th. I don't make up the rules. The Texans are 12th in DVOA. They did rise in their ranking this week after they shellacked the Chargers. The Chiefs actually quietly have a top 10 offense, 9th. The Texans are 23rd, the worst remaining offense in football. Brandon, the worst. I'm sorry. Now, the Texans do have the better defense here. 4th in EPA, while the Chiefs are 15th. That rises to closer top 10 with Jalen Watson, but 15th. Now, one key statistic I want you to look at, which is why all you jabronis that say, Mitch, why don't you believe in the Chiefs ever? Well, jabroni, the Chiefs have a plus 59 point differential and they won 15 games. How fluky can you get? All right? How many close games can you win? That being said, the Texans might be the easiest close game victory the Chiefs have had all year. Or will it be? Let's break it down. Okay. Let's begin with the Texans offense versus the Chiefs defense. That's where I want to begin. It all starts up front for the Texans. The Texans have a suspect offensive line. Everybody knows this, especially if you watch this channel. You know that their O-line is not good. In fact, it's one of the worst in the league. And they're terrible against stunts. They're terrible against blitz. They're terrible against interior pressure. Chris Jones resides in the interior of the Kansas City Chief line. Chris Jones will win whatever one-on-one he is given. Now, that being said, I'm going to look up the current injury report for the Texans because I was trying to pay attention to the Shaq Mason injury. I was trying to pay attention to I believe it's Juice Scruggs, who's also injured. So I don't think there's an update. Is there an update for Wednesday yet? But they did not practice on Tuesday, which is still relatively early in the week. I don't see an update for the Texans on Wednesday yet. It's a little odd. I see it for the Chiefs. I'm not quite sure why there is no update. Now, ESPN does say that Mason will not play. He is out. He was limited in the practice Wednesday. Okay, so Mason was limited. All right. Well, why does it say he's out? That doesn't make any sense. Is that last week? Bro, why don't you help me out here, ESPN, you jabroni? What is this? Anyways, I don't know if Shaq Mason's going to play. Shaq Mason would help, certainly. Drew Scruggs, it doesn't really matter. Kenyon Green, he sucks. Now, what I do like about the Texans is they moved Titus Howard to left guard. I think that actually has helped them a little bit. So they have a stronger side to their left. They've got on the blind side of CJ Stroud, Laramie Tunsil, and Titus Howard, which I think is a good idea. I feel like if they had Shaq Mason on the right, it would strengthen their overall line, but they did not have him last week, okay? I think a lot of people forget that the Texans did have 429 total yards against the Chargers, who were the number one defense in asterisks this year at allowing points. I'm doing this a lot because the Chargers were clearly not the number one defense. Okay? Now, they did have 429 yards against a good defense in the Chargers. Many of those came in the fourth quarter and the later third quarter portion, but the Texans did look a little bit better in certain sections of the game. CJ Stroud, what I loved about him in that game was his ability to be a playmaker, his ability to extend, his ability to make plays in big moments. And I thought that was the difference between him and Herbert. Despite both of them struggling in the game at times, I thought that Stroud made more big throws and big moment plays. And that could have been the difference between the two teams, okay? Offensively, I think that the Chiefs do have a fairly good matchup on Nico Collins with Trent McDuffie. I think Collins will get plenty of targets and plenty of looks and probably a lot of screens to get him going in this game. The Chiefs in the last outing, they were all over the quick in-breakers of the Texans, often playing a lot of inside leverage to help them against Nico Collins. So can Nico maybe make some of his routes, or can the Texans potentially find some success with Nico Collins working the perimeter, working the outbreaking routes, getting in a quick rhythm that way? Those could be successful. I remember Tank Dell having quite a bit of success one-on-one with outbreakers in that game against the Chiefs. So look out for that potentially. John Mechie is somebody that I think should step up in this role. He's going to have to play a key factor. He was very shaky last game against the Chargers, especially early on. He did not play very well. Dalton Schultz has to be an X factor for the Texans, as the Chiefs were one of, if not the worst team at defending tight ends all season. So Dalton Schultz could be the guy that steps up, right? No Tank Dell. Deontay Johnson was let go. That didn't work out, somehow going back to the Ravens, which makes no sense. But Dalton Schultz is a player that, given the matchup with Justin Reed, Connor, or whoever is going to cover him, I do think that Dalton Schultz is going to have to play a big role at winning his one-on-ones, at converting third downs, at getting the chains moving, and being a red zone presence and threat. Joe Mixon and the running game. The Chiefs are going to be difficult to run the ball on, as they were in the first matchup, but can the Texans run the ball a little bit to hold the ball possession, to control the game a bit better? Because Kansas City on the other side of the ball is all about controlling the game, all about eating clock, all about time of possession, all about long drives. They don't have a lot of explosion in their offense. So if you can take that away from them and you can run the ball and you can quick throw them to death, then maybe you can play their own game better than them. You can possess it, right? So the Texans are going to have to find their quick passing game. They're going to have to find their running game. They're going to have to find some play action shots. But it's not going to be easy, given that the Chiefs have a great mismatch in Chris Jones across the defensive front. They had problems with George Karlaftis in the first matchup. And they have Trent McDuffie to cover Nico Collins. So that puts that much more tension on Stroud having to create outside of structure, to buy extra time to get these guys open. On top of that, the Chiefs have Steve Spagnuolo with a bye week to prepare, with extra time to find stunts, blitzes, and ways to attack the protection of the Texans, which is going to make life uncomfortable for CJ Stroud in the passing game. Bobby Slowick has been a coordinator I've been torching all year. He's a coordinator that I feel like is extremely overrated, who I feel like has had an extremely bad season. I thought that last week he had a pretty decent game plan overall, and I thought that they were okay, but he's going to have to prove to me that he can be better. Okay, he's going to have to prove to me that he can be better. On paper, I don't see how the Texans score 20 plus points. I think in order for the Texans to win this game, they're going to have to win like 20-17, 17-16, something like that. They scored 19 in the first game. That was with Tank Dell. I will say that the Texans surprised me a little bit in that game with how well they were able to move the ball a little bit, in terms of like Stroud threw 2 picks in that game. And I want to say, one of them was a deep shot that was just like awful right at the start of the game. The other was right before halftime in field goal range, which was in a lot of ways a backbreaker. Looking back at that first game, and this is one of 3 games that's a rematch, they lost 27-19. I might recall that game was 17-16 at one point, and should have been 17-17. It should have been tied, but they missed the extra point. And I think a large reason that Fairbairn missed the extra point was because Tank Dell got injured in the end zone on the touchdown play, which completely threw off the rhythm of the sequencing of the extra point, which threw off the emotion of the team. Stroud was instantly like super upset, crying on the sidelines. I remember I was streaming the game. It was a big game, right? I'm pretty sure I streamed that game. Maybe I didn't, but I just remember watching it and being like very, very distraught at what was going down with that injury. And I thought the Chiefs, though, offensively move the ball much better in that game than I thought that they would, especially through the passing game. Their run game was fine. Their run game was okay. I didn't think it was anything special in that game, but I thought they were able to throw the ball underneath a lot. They were able to beat man coverage pretty consistently with a lot of crossers. Mahomes was able to evade the pass rush. I thought they did a good job against the Texans pass rush for the most part in that game. And the Texans were clearly missing their linebacking play. Azeez Al-Shaair did not play in that game. They missed his speed. They missed his ferociousness. They missed his agility to be able to break down and make tackles against the run, but also, more importantly, the quick, short screen passing game, where I think him and Christian Harris and To'o, but especially Harris and Azeez Al-Shaair are going to have to be huge factors. They're going to have to take those yak plays and eliminate them with their speed. Lassiter, I think, can slow down D-Hop. I think that Stingley can hang with Worthy, but the problem you get into there is like all the pick plays and all the schemed up plays that the Chiefs are able to throw at you. You also got to deal with Travis Kelce. You also got to deal with now Hollywood Brown, who's back and healthy and ready and rested. So he's going to be potentially a problem against that third cornerback of the Texans. Miles Bryant had a pretty terrible game last week, and he's not a great player in my opinion, especially in man. So that kind of throws you off a little bit. And you can attack these Texans safeties, I think, down the field with speed. I don't think the Chiefs will be able to run the ball all that well against the Texans. Texans are a good run defense. Chiefs are not a good running team this year. They haven't shown a lot of consistency or ability to run the ball all that well. I just think the Chiefs have more answers on offense. The Texans struggle with quarterback scrambles. That's an avenue for Mahomes to make some plays. I think that the Chiefs have more depth of weaponry. I think the Chiefs have better scheme on offense and arguably on defense. It's going to have to take a miraculous effort for CJ Stroud to pull off this victory. Stroud is going to have to make some incredible playmaking outside of structure plays. Nico Collins is going to have to win his matchups consistently. And others that haven't consistently shown up for the Texans, like John Mechie, like Dalton Schultz, these guys are going to have to play well, because I don't think you can just run the ball 25 times against Kansas City and win the game. That would be great, but the Chiefs have not shown an ability to not stop the run this year, right? They're a good run-stopping team. So overall, I think the Chiefs win. That being said, it's 8.5 points. And 8.5 points in this type of game, I think the total is like 41.5, 42.5, somewhere in that range, the low 40s. Off the top of my head, I'm saying this. This is going to be a defensive game, right? A defensive game. The Chiefs, I think their X factor is Joe Thuney, like a guy that, is he going to be left guard? Is he going to be left tackle? I kind of think he's going to be playing left tackle. I think that gives them a better opportunity to block Danielle Hunter on the edge. Will Anderson will have to feast on Jawan Taylor, and I think he can if the Texans want to win this game. And Danico Autry and Mario Edwards, that's where they get a chance to maybe take over in pass rushing reps. One of those guys is going to get a matchup with that left guard that's not Joe Thuney. So that's going to be a big matchup, because we know that Smith and we know that Humphrey are awesome on the inside, right? And they'll probably always be giving help to that left guard, because Smith is probably, if Thuney's at left tackle, they'll always be giving help to the left guard. They'll be isolating Smith probably with one of Autry or Edwards on those passing snaps. So I trust Andy Reid in his scheme. I trust Mahomes' decision-making more than Stroud. I trust the home field of the Chiefs, the cold weather. I think those are factors. The Texans are more of a dome team. They're not necessarily a cold weather team, although they did play in Kansas City earlier in the year, and they kind of got an experience for that. It was cold during that game. So I think this game could be close. I think the Texans will hang around. I think their defense is really, really good. I think they can get after Mahomes and make some problems for him in terms of throwing under pressure, getting hit while throwing the ball. But I just feel like the Chiefs defense, it's going to be hard for the Texans. And I think the Chiefs just have more depth, more answers, more overall better scheme and talent. So I'm going to take the Chiefs to win, but I will take the Texans to cover, because 8.5 in a game like this where it should be kind of tight, a lot of long possession drives, A great defense in the Texans, a very good defense in the Chiefs. I think this is going to be played in the low 20s and the higher teens, just as the first game sort of was, but the Texans are a little bit better on defense in this matchup than they were on the last matchup. They have a little bit of a healthier unit. So I could see a score like 24-17 or like 23-16 or maybe like 24-22 or like somewhere in that range, 23-20, maybe a last-second field goal from the Chiefs, maybe a last-second touchdown from the Chiefs. That is very possible as well with the way they've been playing these games, right? We talked about the point differential. It's there for a reason. Typically, the Chiefs have played teams in the past like Jacksonville in this round, Cleveland in this round. Last year they played Buffalo, which was a kind of a different type of matchup. That's a more elevated team in terms of contention because of Josh Allen. But teams like the Browns, teams like the Jags, who I would kind of view as a similar level to this Texans team, they weren't able to truly blow those teams out, but it always felt like they were probably going to win the game. That's kind of how I feel like this game is probably going to go. So I'm going to take the Chiefs to win, Texans to cover. It's hard for me to imagine the Chiefs blow the Texans out just because their offense, I don't think they've hit 30 points all year. They really don't get a lot of margin in these games. But I do definitely think they're the better team. They just have way less flaws. The Texans are probably the most flawed team remaining in the playoffs. I do think that they've got great potential at times with their individual players offensively and with their pass rush defensively. And Stingley and Lassiter have been phenomenal, but I just don't think they'll be good enough to beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead. So I'm going to take the Chiefs to win and the Texans to cover. What's up, everybody in the chat? Thank you for joining me, guys. As I pointed out a little bit earlier, we already tried to start this stream and we got booted off, like right as I was beginning to break down the Chiefs and the Texans. So don't forget to Gronk spike the like button because it's really going to mean a lot for the algorithm's sake if you do like the video and if you do, support this video, because I'm not sure how the turnover in the quick live streams is going to work out in my favor. So make sure you like the video and help your brother out. Also, let me know your picks in the comment section below if you're watching this after the fact. Zach Wilson is in the chat. He says the Texans will have a hard time against the Chiefs. Samuel says they played the Texans in 2019 and scored 51. Yeah, that was a different Chiefs team. That was a much different Chiefs team. That was the Chiefs when they could score. That was the Chiefs when they could score. Christian says if the Chiefs make it to the Super Bowl, I hope they meet the Eagles. Remember last time they played each other in the regular season, didn't end well for the Chiefs. All right, we'll see. Motor City is picking the Chiefs, Ravens, Lions, and Eagles. Singh is giving his Lions pick. James Dean says, go Texans. We're not at the Lions game yet, guys. Just reading your Texans stuff. Brandon says Texans odds were 3.5 in December, 8.5 when they get their guys back. It's crazy. Well, to be fair, I do agree with you. I think that the line is definitely in favor of the Texans. Like, it's definitely enticing you to bet the Texans, but at the same time, it's also kind of correcting for playoff Mahomes, playoff Kelsey, the Chiefs in the playoffs, all that sort of voodoo stuff. Like, Vegas is definitely saying, like, there's added value there, but also I feel like Tank Dell, I think, is a big loss for this matchup in particular, and I don't think the Texans have truly replaced that player. And who do the Texans really have back? They do have Aziz, and I think they have Fatu Kazi back that didn't play in the last game. But other than that, that's two defenders. Their defense should help. Their defense should be better in this game than they were in the last game. But I could see the offense struggling more than they did in the first game. That's kind of where I would say, like, that's maybe where the 8.5 gets a bit tricky. Because I think a lot of people that will bet the Chiefs will think, and the other thing that's going into this line is the teasers. So with 8.5, the higher the number gets, 8.5, right? You're trying to take away that tease potential because a lot of people could easily see the Chiefs winning by 2, right? Let's say they kick a game-winning field goal, they win by 2, and everybody that teased the Chiefs down 6 points to 2.5 end up losing, and Vegas wins all their money. So that's part of it as well, in terms of the spread. Jake says he loves the streams. Thank you so much, Jake. ELB says Kansas City never covers this big of a spread as a huge favorite. That's pretty much true. That's pretty true. All right, let's get to the next matchup. Remember, guys, if you want to check out some of the props that I like in this game, go check out my Owner's Box fantasy video that I made that has been posted on the channel. Okay, the next matchup on Saturday night is going to be the Washington Commanders, the lowest seed remaining in the NFL playoffs, taking on the number 1 NFC seed, the Detroit Lions. Lions are favored by 9.5. They are at home. This is going to be a raucous crowd in the Motor City. Let's take a look at the tale of the tape between Jared Goff and Jaden Daniels. All right. The Commanders are the 9th best team according to DVOA. The Lions are number 2. In EPA, offensively, the Lions rank 3rd. 3rd, behind only Buffalo and Baltimore. Washington is 4th, only behind Detroit, Buffalo, and Baltimore. They played the number 5 offense last week, Tampa Bay. The Lions are actually 7th defensively in EPA, but as we know, they have plenty of injuries, especially in the secondary, and obviously no Aiden Hutchinson. Okay? Washington Commanders, they actually went down in EPA defensively last week against Tampa Bay. Despite the score, it was a little misleading. Baker Mayfield only had 3 incompletions in the game, and really it was more about ball possession than it was defense. So they're 25th. They are the worst defense remaining. The Texans are the worst offense remaining. The Commanders are the worst defense remaining. And obviously, the Lions have a ridiculous point differential. I think it's the best in the league, 222. Okay, so let's break it down. Lions offense versus the Commanders defense. The Lions team total for this game, I believe, is like 32 or 32.5. I would take the over. I think they're probably going to score in the range of 34 to 38 points in this game. It will be determined by how well their defense plays in some way, shape, or form, though, because the Commanders are going to want to possess the ball when we talk about that side of the football. But the Commanders, first of all, in the run game, the Lions are one of the best running teams in football, if not the best traditional running team in football. The Washington Commanders are bottom 3 in yards per carry allowed. They're bottom 3 in yards before contact allowed. Okay? This is not a good run defense. Last week, they looked a little bit better against Tampa Bay, especially early in the game. And one tendency I noticed from them is they played very aggressive man coverage on the outside, and they stacked the box. And Tampa sort of still tried to run the ball, and they didn't run the ball all that effectively until the second half. Jonathan Allen inside with Daron Payne. Those are 2 really good guys, 2 really good players. I think the Lions can find success by running the ball more so to the edges and outside zone them to death in this game. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to have an absolutely phenomenal performance. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to have over 100 yards rushing, probably a 50-yard receiving day, maybe multiple touchdowns. I think Gibbs is going to dominate this game with explosives, especially considering the yards before contact that the Commanders do allow. Gibbs will also be a huge mismatch in the receiving department against Bobby Wagner. Bobby Wagner has an ankle injury, and he's already slow. So he's not going to be able to cover Jahmyr Gibbs. Frankie Louvu can't cover Jahmyr Gibbs. Frankie Louvu is going to blitz a lot. He's going to be around the line of scrimmage. He's almost like an extra defensive end. Okay, he's not really a linebacker in a lot of ways. That's Bobby Wagner's responsibility. I think Gibbs is going to eat him for breakfast, lunch, and dinner because Wagner can't move. So Gibbs is going to have a big day. I do think that Amon-Ra is going to have a massive game as well, as the slot corner of the Commanders is Noah Noah Auburn Idigby. No. Let me try that again. Noah I don't know. I'm going to give up. I'm going to give up. All right. So it's Noah versus Amon-Ra in the slot. That's not a good matchup in my opinion. I think Amon-Ra eats. On the outside, Marshawn Lattimore looked absolutely pathetic against Mike Evans. Now, that is Mike Evans. He is a freak of nature. He is a Hall of Famer. He is absolutely unbelievable. But Jameson Williams is a problem for Lattimore because if they play a lot of press man coverage on the outside and they get a little bit too over antsy against the run and they bite, Jameson is going to run straight past Lattimore and he might have multiple big plays in this game down the field. I think Sam Laporta will have a modest day if I had to say out of anybody in the offense. I don't really think he's going to go crazy. I think more so it's going to be St. Brown, Gibbs, and a little bit of Jameson Williams mixed in there. But especially, with the amount of blitz and man coverage that the Commanders typically do play, they're probably going to have to play that style because they want to be able to stop the run first and foremost against Detroit. I know that David Montgomery will be back. I don't expect David Montgomery to play like a massive role. I think he'll play situationally, but I don't think he'll play a ton. I still think Gibbs will be the guy primarily. Because of the amount of man and blitz that they play, I think that Goff's going to eat them up because they've been the best team against man coverage this year. So Goff has been eating that all season. Ben Johnson with all his different concepts that he's got in the bag with a bye week to prepare, despite all the Zoom calls he's been on with the Patriots and all that. I think he'll still have plenty of plays to look at and to go to. So I think the Lions pretty much can do what they wish in this game. I think they're going to be able to run the ball. It might actually be a better idea if early in the game they throw the ball more than they run the ball, and they maybe even entice them to get into some heavy formations and look like you're going to run the ball, but then pull it for play action a little bit more so that you can, because the Commanders are probably predictably going to come out in a lot of heavy personnel defensively and probably going to try to stop the run. So if they can come out and throw the ball early, screen the ball early, get it going with their passing game, that might open up the run for the rest of the game for them to control it that way. But I think either way, the Lions' defensive front should dominate, or offensive front should dominate. And I think that Goff should have plenty of time to make plays. The Washington Commanders' best hope is that their interior defensive line, plays really well. That Lattimore all of a sudden gets his head out of his ass and plays really well. And their blitzes get home occasionally, which forces Goff to throw an interception, get strip sacked, a negative play or turnover, and that they occasionally, take the Lions run game and, create a negative play through their blitzing and stuff like that. Dan Quinn's going to be creative in trying to create negatives and trying to be, creative. Like Dan Quinn, how he's played the Niners in the past is he's tried to just kind of attack the running game and sure, we're going to get gashed occasionally, but we're also going to try to get in the backfield and create some losses. And I think that's also going to result in some explosives at the same time for Detroit. So it's a pretty fine line way to play. On the other side of the football, the Commanders should be able to find some success as they do have the fourth best offense in the NFL. The thing that I do look at, though, for Lions fans is I actually kind of like how your defense from a scheme standpoint matches up with the Commanders because the Commanders really only have one good receiver. So they have Terry McLaurin, and Terry McLaurin could eat against Arnold, Robertson, or whoever. I would tend to think that Robertson would be a better matchup overall than Arnold for McLaurin, but just because of the quickness and the speed potentially. But I don't know. We'll see what they do there. I do think the Lions, because they stop the run pretty well, The Commanders will not have a multi-dimensional offense from that standpoint. They barely ran the ball well at all against Tampa with their running backs. They've barely ran the ball. Brian Robinson in the last 5 games has done absolutely nothing on the ground. Their run game from their running backs has been pathetic. They've had nothing to go to, nothing to feast on. Zacchaeus, Zach Ertz, De'Ami Brown. I mean, these guys are not one-on-one man coverage toasting wide receivers, right? A lot of the Commanders' offense is screens, RPOs, which they use the most at the highest rate in the NFL. I think Jaden Daniels in this game is going to have another amazing game of him running the ball on early downs, him keeping this offense out of 3rd and long. Cliff is going to have to call a brilliant game in terms of that, the quarterback runs, the quick throws, just getting Terry really involved in the game, finding ways to manufacture separation in man coverage, whether it be pick plays or things like this. Cliff was great against the Bucs. Their decision-making was highly aggressive. I don't see any punts in this game. I don't think the Lions are going to punt. I don't think the Commanders are going to punt. I don't think either team is going to punt in this game. The Commanders are going to go for it every single time, as they should. They're the underdog of 9.5 points in a playoff game. Go for it. Go for it. Go for it. Treat every drive with 4 downs. The Lions, Dan Campbell doesn't give a shit. He's going to go for it every time. And he should, because his offensive line should dominate. So he should. Now, the Lions linebackers, Jack Campbell, Alex Anzalone, these guys are going to be critical against Jaden Daniels. They're excellent tacklers. The Lions don't miss a lot of tackles. The Lions should be effective against RPOs because they play a lot of man press coverage, and that just tightens those windows a lot. And they're also very good at tackling. Brian Branch, Jack Campbell, these guys can tackle, right? They can make plays. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of yak there to be had for the Commanders. The one area where they might be able to attack is with Austin Eckler as maybe a little bit of a backfield option in the receiving game as well. But I think Daniels is going to have success because he's going to have success with his feet. The Lions are not good against mobile quarterbacks. The Lions tend to not contain very well. They blitz, and if Daniels can maybe buy that extra moment or time, that's going to allow that separation for a guy like De'Ami Brown or Zacchaeus to just get a little bit more open than he would on the natural route itself. You continue and talk about, I think the Commanders need to get a little bit of a lead early. They almost need to take the ball early. They need to possess the ball, and they need to score, and they need to get up. I think if they're down big at halftime, there's almost no chance. I just don't see it at all. I don't see it at all that way. And the Commanders, they nearly played perfect. And they almost lost to the Bucs, if the Bucs don't fumble the ball in their own end, they probably go up by 2 scores and they probably beat the Commanders as well as the Commanders played in that game. The Lions are much, much better than the Bucs. Much better than the Bucs. It's just, I don't really see, other than Jaden Daniels' magic and Terry McLaurin going crazy, and the Commanders, the best script for the Commanders is like they played against the Bucs. A lot of plays, a lot of possession, limiting the amount of possessions in the game, and winning a game in the 20s where neither team gets the ball a lot, and the Commanders constantly are converting 3rd downs, constantly converting 4th downs, constantly extending drives like that. That's their only way to win. If this game sees more and more possessions, 3 and outs, if this game sees explosive plays even, and that's the thing about the Lions defense. Even when they give up plays and they give up, drives or points, because of the way they play very aggressive. So that almost leads to less plays, right? More explosiveness. So that's why I think this is a really hard game for the Commanders to win. I think the Lions win. I think the Lions cover. I do. I think that they win by 2 scores. I'm going to say like 38-24 for the Lions. 38-24. I think the Commanders stick around a little bit because I do think they'll move the ball a little bit. But I just don't have any faith in the Commander defense against this juggernaut of an offense. It's going to be different playing in Detroit. That crowd's going to be crazy, So I think the Lions dominate for the most part. Claire's got 38-10 for the Lions. Underground says Commanders will fight, but to no avail. Ben says NFC Championship is going to be the teams who swapped quarterbacks. Claire wants to know the total for this game. Troy says 55. Funky Lions fan says I said more like 34-27. So you think the game's going to be close. All right, that's interesting from a Lions fan perspective. Thank you guys for watching so far. We've got 2 games down. Don't forget to Gronk spike the like button. I'm going to have to speed up my process a little bit here because we started late because we had to cancel one of the streams. But we're on to the next game, which I think is a little bit more of a simple breakdown. All right. So the next game is the Los Angeles Rams at the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles are favored by 6 at home. Now, the first thing to know about this game is this game could see rain and it could see potentially snow. Snow is in the forecast potentially. Saquon in the snow in the playoffs, gimme. That would be phenomenal. I would love that. Okay? This is going to be, if you think the Lions and Commanders is going to be high scoring, electric, high flying, fun, this game is going to be sluggish, slow, and dirty. All right? I think the defenses are going to come to play here, but I also think that the Rams are in real tough in this game. I definitely think so. Okay, let's break down the tail of the tape before we get to anything else. So, the Eagles are the number 4 team overall in DVOA. The Rams moved up to 11 after their win over the Vikings in convincing fashion. The Eagles are 7th in EPA, while the Rams have moved up to 13th offensively. The Eagles have the number 2 defense, and the Rams have the number 18 defense. That being said, the Rams just played the number 1 defense, in EPA, the Vikings. But we broke down why that was a bad matchup for the Vikings with how much they like to blitz and play a lot of zone, which Matthew Stafford, we know historically, feasts against, okay? We broke down why we picked the Rams last week. We were all over it, and we had the Rams winning. We had the Rams with the upset, and that there was a big reason why, because the Vikings defense, no matter how good it looked on stats, did not match up well in the game against the Rams offense. Now, I do think the Eagles defense, and we're going to start there, matches up well with the Rams offense. And the reason I say that is their front is excellent. Nolan Smith looked great in his first ever playoff game. Milton Williams is a dog. He had 2 sacks last time he played the Rams. Jalen Carter's one of the best D tackles in football. And on the other side, you've got Sweat or whoever else they might put out there. Zach Bond in the middle is an excellent coverage linebacker to cover the middle of the field. And they've got Cooper DeJean in the nickel spot, Quinyon Mitchell, Darius Slay. They have one of the best back ends in the NFL. Now, why that's important to understand, okay? So Vic Fangio has played Sean McVay a few times. Sean McVay has struggled against Vic Fangio in the past as a play caller and as an offensive schemer because of the way that Fangio plays. He likes to play a lot of cover 4, okay? He likes to play a lot of quarters, or man coverage. And, when Sean McVay was at his peak of offense, he was peaking, it was like cover 3, just destroying cover 3. Like Seahawks cover 3, just destroying cover 3 all the time. And Fangio likes to play a lot of cover 4 and likes to rush 4 a lot, doesn't blitz a lot. The Eagles are very low in their blitz percentage. I think they're the 3rd lowest in blitz percentage in the NFL, or 4th lowest in the NFL. So they rush 4 a lot and they drop back in coverage a lot. Okay? And that's in comparison to the Vikings, who blitz a ton and don't rush 4 a lot. So the Vikings like to get after you with extra people. Last week, Stafford was 14 for 18 against the blitz. Against the four-man rush, his numbers this year and in previous years are not the same. Against the four-man rush with a heavy coverage unit, it's not the same because those deep balls are not available. Those vertical shots, those middle-of-the-field crossers, those things are more so taken away by the style that Fangio likes to play. Fangio has also had a good beat on the running game of McVay over the years, specifically when he used to run the outside zone stuff. But this Eagles team is hard to run on because they've got such a beefy front seven with guys like Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter and those boys. It's hard to run the ball on them and push them around. So it's going to be hard for Kyren to find a lot of success. I think that for Stafford, he's going to have to play superhuman. He's going to have to dice it up, like a lot of underneath throws. I would actually like to see them go to more like 2 tight end sets like they did last week. A lot of Tyler Higbee, Colby Parkinson. Try to force more linebackers on the field for the Eagles because Nakobe Dean got injured. Nakobe Dean has had an excellent season. He's been a rising star for the Eagles in the middle. And with him getting injured, you could potentially pick on more base personnel of the Eagles. So 2 or 3 linebackers typically in base personnel. If they get more linebackers out there, Higbee, Parkinson, they could throw against those guys. Cooper Kupp has not been a huge factor kind of oddly in this offense. Puka Nacua, he should have a good game, whether it be as a ball carrier in the screen game or through the air. He should still have a good game. I find it hard to really realize who's going to cover him, one-on-one. So we'll see how that goes. But I just think, okay, so it's in Philly. It could snow. It's going to be cold. We've seen the Rams play outdoors. We've seen the Rams play in the rain against the Niners. Was not good. We've seen the Rams play outdoors against the Jets. Was not good. We've seen them play teams that like to rush for the Niners, the Jets. Was not good. Okay, they leaned a lot into conservative play calling, a lot of screens, a lot of runs. I don't think those things are really going to work that well against the Eagles, to be honest. I think that Stafford, I think they're going to have to, Nakua's going to have to go crazy. Kupp's going to have to elevate his game. Stafford's going to have to be unbelievable. And Tyler Higbee is going to have to make some plays as well to kind of, win the middle of the field. I don't see the Rams having a lot of success offensively because I don't think they're going to be able to block the Eagles all that well. And I think the style of Fangio's coverage and the style of his defense inherently plays into the weaknesses of the Rams offense. Okay, so I think the Eagles are going to give a lot of tough time. Milton Williams and Jalen Carter, I think, will eat in this game. On the other side of the ball, I think the Rams defense has improved a lot. And this is the X factor here. The Rams have blitzed really well, timely blitzes. Their front seven is really, really good, especially not really their front seven, but their front four is really, really good. Their ability to pressure quarterbacks is really, really good. Akilla Witherspoon's been playing really well at corner. Their safeties have been playing really, really well. Cameron Curl and Kitchens, the rookie, they've been playing really well. The Rams, I love what Shula's doing with them. He seems to mix it up very well. He seems to play game to game with an effective game plan. The last time they played, it was 37-20 final. The Eagles blew them out. The Eagles were up huge, and I was like 37-14 at one point. It was 20-7 one point. Saquon had 255 yards rushing in this game the last time they played. The Rams, I do think, will be better against the run in this game because they've improved their run defense. I do think so, but I just don't think they're going to be able to stop it fully, especially if the game is in the snow. I think the Eagles will lean into Jalen Hurts running, Saquon running, maybe some screens to A.J. Brown and things like that, but I think they're really going to focus on running the ball a lot in this game. And then if it's like more clear weather, I think that's where A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith factor in. A.J. Brown was a beast in the first game. Now, Akilla Witherspoon did not play in that game. He's played really well against Justin Jefferson. He played really well in recent weeks. So he's more of a better matchup for A.J. Brown to maybe limit him a little bit more. But Devontae Smith didn't play in the first game either. So Devontae Smith's also a factor that he can win one-on-ones. He can win on the outside. He can make plays. And Dallas Goedert played really well last week. And against those linebackers of the Rams, that's also a problem, but Cameron Curl could maybe match up with him a little bit. He's been matching up with tight ends quite a bit this season. Um, I just think the Eagles, we know what style they're going to play. I think for the Eagles to lose, Jalen Hurts is going to have to play terrible. Like, Jalen Hurts is going to have to not know what he's looking at consistently, which falls on Shula to find some coverages and some rotations and some blitzes to confuse the quarterback. I think that the Jalen Hurts is, he's going to have to make a mistake. I think for the Rams to win, they're going to have to get after Jalen Hurts. I think for the Rams to win, they're going to have to keep Saquon to a modest day. It doesn't have to be like 60 yards, but if they can keep him to like 90, I think they've got a chance to win. And Stafford's going to have to go crazy. Nakua's going to have to go crazy. But, this matchup's really hard for the Rams. It's on the road. It's outdoors. It's in Philly. It's bad weather, potentially. It's a dominant front defensive line and offensive line. The Rams' best ability on defense is their pass rush, and that's somewhat negated by Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata at the tackle position against Jared Verse and those guys. So I think Hurts will have some time to throw and make plays. And against this secondary, if they have a little bit more time, that quarterback has a little bit more time, you can find the cracks, you can find the holes, you can find the explosives against this team. So I think the Eagles win. I think Hurts is probably pretty sloppy. I think the Rams find ways to rattle him a little bit. I think the weather probably plays a factor into this being relatively low scoring. So I'm going to go like 24-16 or something like that for the Eagles. I think they win. I think they cover. I would lean towards the Eagles covering for sure, and that's going to be my official pick. I just feel like the Rams don't match up well, and the Eagles are just too good at the line of scrimmage, I think, for the Rams. And the Rams, they can play. They looked real good against the Vikings because they could win the front. They could beat the blitz. Stafford could beat the blitz. And on the other side, they could get pressure on Sam Darnold. But I don't think that's going to be the case in this game. I don't think they're going to get too much pressure on Jalen Hurts. I think it's going to have to be coverage-based. And I think on the other side, Saquon's going to run. And then on the other side, I think the Eagles are going to get pressure on Stafford and make his life uncomfortable. So that's how I see it. Rams says 24-20 Rams. Rams RPTN. Big Al says, I have 23-20 Eagles. Philly wins. LA covers. If the weather is involved, 6 is a lot of points to cover. That is true. 24-20 for Claire for the Eagles. Durkant's got 28-23. Rams rally back, but come up a bit short because of the Eagles' defense. I think people are kind of somewhat overlooking too. Like the Eagles played really poorly last week, and they still won, and they still covered. The Rams played really well last week. Sometimes it's hard to replicate that 2 weeks in a row. I'm just going to throw that out there as well. Now let's get to the main event game, which is the Buffalo Bills at home in front of the Mafia. Crazy dudes jumping through tables left and right. The Ravens are favored by 1 on the road. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, MVP versus MVP. Who is the real MVP? That is the question. And as Durkant said on BLV versus Consensus, I agree with him. I think this game should just settle MVP, although that's not how it works, unfortunately. But this is the game of the week, the game of the year. This might be the Super Bowl. I said it. I'll say it again. I think the winner of this game might damn near win the Super Bowl. Okay, I think these might be the best teams in the league, and let's check out why. The tale of the tape. Okay, the Baltimore Ravens are the number 1 team in DVOA. The Bills are 3rd. In offense, the Bills are 2nd. The Ravens are 1st. In defense, the Bills moved up to 11th, and the Ravens moved up to 10th. And the point differential is the same. 157. The regular season point differential. I think now the Bills, if you included playoffs, the Bills would have a slightly better point differential, but doesn't really matter. Basically, the 2 statistical best teams in the league, the Ravens statistically are the best team in the league as they are 1st in DVOA. Now, but the Bills are the 2 seed and they are at home. Okay, so let's break down this matchup. Where do we start? Let's start with the last time they played, which kind of leads into the Ravens offense against the Bills defense, because that was kind of like what people took away from the game. Henry went crazy. Henry ran all over Buffalo, and Buffalo didn't have any answers, specifically in the first half of the game. We'll talk about what they did in the second half to slow it down a little bit. And then Lamar didn't really do a ton. He had a couple touchdowns in the game, but he didn't even throw for 200 yards. He had like 50 rushing yards. It was a pretty modest day. He was handing the ball off a lot. And actually, I think the leading receiver for Baltimore was Justice Hill, the running back. I think he had over 60 yards. No one else had more than like 30. So the Bills' pass defense wasn't too bad. It was more so that they just got absolutely gashed in the running game. And that was way back in week 4. It was 35-10. Baltimore won on Sunday Night Football, shockingly in a blowout where like the Bills have only been losers of more than one possession like twice in the last 5 years or something. So it was one of 2 times. Now, why did that happen? Now, I think partly because of the way the Bills played in that game. They played only 26% of their snaps in base personnel. They played a ton of nickel. And within that, I think they were forced to do that because they did not have their 2 starting linebackers, Matt Milano or Bernard. They also did not have their nickel corner, Taron Johnson, who is one of the best run-defending nickel corners in the league. They rely on him a lot in that regard. And also, Taylor Rapp got decimated and left the game in the first quarter. He's also their best tackling and best safety against the run. Also in that game, Buffalo didn't have Damari Cooper yet offensively, and Khalil Shakir got hurt in the first quarter. This time around, Zay Flowers probably will not play, which is a huge factor. And the way that the Bills went about the second half adjustments, and they did slow down the Ravens significantly in the second half, almost allowing the Bills to come back. The Bills almost made it, I don't remember the score exactly, but they were down and they were driving and they ran one of the dumbest plays I've ever seen. Some sort of trick play where Kyle Van Noy ended up stripping the ball from Josh Allen. It was like one of those throws across the field. And the Bills were driving. They just had a stop and they would have made it a 1-score game. But they ran this stupid trick play and it completely ruined the rest of the game. The Ravens had a short field from there on out. They scored and the game was over. So that's kind of how the game flow went. The Ravens jumped out to a lead. The first play of the game, Derrick Henry, 87-yard touchdown. And the Ravens were able to play on their terms from there on out against a injured middle of the field of the Bills defense, which got absolutely picked on by Justice Hill, Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, and the boys. All right. Now, some guy named Balin Spector led the Bills linebackers in snaps. I don't think he's even like on the radar anymore. I do think the Bills will try to up their percentage of base snaps defensively with Milano, with Bernard, with Williams at linebackers. So I think you could see more 3 linebacker sets in this game. I think you could also see the Ravens with more 2 tight end sets, which they played a lot of in that game. 75% of their snaps against the Bills were with 2 tight ends or 2 running backs in the game. Patrick Ricard counts as a running back technically. 75%. Now, I think that's the case because Zay Flowers is hurt. Without Zay Flowers, the receiving depth chart of the Ravens is pretty lame to the point where they had to pick up Deontay Johnson again, which I don't know why. But Nelson Aguilar is their number 2. If Zay Flowers is out, Rashad Bateman would be their number 1. What the Bills did after halftime to slow down Derrick Henry and the running game was they stacked the box and they played a lot more man coverage and they blitzed a lot more. And that was very effective for a portion of the game. That is what I think they're going to start to do in the game. I think they're actually going to turn their tendencies because the Bills typically play a lot of zone. In the game, Lamar had 22 dropbacks. They played 17 snaps of zone. I think the Bills will play quite a bit of zone as they typically do, but I think they're going to have a lot more man coverage in this game, especially if Zay Flowers doesn't play, and I think they're going to stack the box with their linebackers in this game because I think they're going to force, without Zay, Rashad Bateman to beat Christian Benford and, Nelson Aguilar to beat Rasul Douglas and whoever else. And I think they're going to get after Lamar. I think they're going to try to force him to make some throws down the field with these receivers that I don't think they feel are that good. So that's what I think McDermott is going to bring in this game, which is kind of like the formula Kansas City had in the AFC Championship last year. Because against Derrick Henry, you don't want to give Derrick Henry too much cushion. You don't want to give Derrick Henry an ability to get speed, an ability to run at you full speed, right? And to run you over. Like, that's what they did in the first game with their bad linebackers and their shitty, safeties and all that. And it didn't work, right? Derrick Henry just ran by them, ran them over, and just said, peace out, like Tyreek Hill. So I don't think that's going to be the strategy for them. I do think, though, for the Ravens, I think Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews, specifically off of play action, could be ways that they attack the Bills. If the Bills are, being a little bit too run focused, that's where I think you can beat them and maybe go after them a little bit. I think you can get these safeties, especially if it's one-on-one. I think those two tight ends could factor in. Justice Hill should still be involved in the game plan, maybe not as much as he was in the first game, because Milano and Bernard are much better at covering running backs than Balin Spector. But I do feel like Justice Hill could still be involved. And I don't know, the receivers, I don't think will play a massive role. Occasionally Rashad Bateman on a broken play, but I don't think they're going to be trying to target Rashad Bateman a lot. I think it's going to be a lot of running, a lot of play action, a lot of Lamar scrambling, and I think the Bills are going to be trying to play kind of like they did against Bo Nix at times, man coverage, spy Lamar with almost like a 5-man rush. So rush 4 and have Matt Milano spying Lamar and trying to track him in space and trying to tackle him. That's what I think they're going to do, just as they did against Bo Nix. And Matt Milano looked back last week. So that's a huge, huge thing for the Bills in this game, is having that guy back. Last playoffs, they didn't have him. Now they've got him back. That being said, this is a tough matchup for the Bills. They've been good against the run, but they always do typically struggle more with the power big running teams. And the Bills, they have to change their tendencies in order to stop it. So the question will be, does McDermott change his tendencies a little bit, or does he play the same way he played against the Ravens the first time? If he plays against the Ravens the way he did the first time, it's not going to go that well. Even with the improved personnel, it's not going to go that well. I think they've got to change a little bit. And if they do, that could be just enough for Josh Allen to gain the upper hand, gain the edge. Because the thing about this game is the Ravens destroyed the Bills, right? So the Bills have the counterpunch opportunity, and they're at home. That game was in Baltimore. Baltimore was desperate. They were 1-2. They needed to win the game. It was on prime time. They came out with a great game plan. They executed against an injured Bills team. Now the Bills have the counterpunch opportunity. Will they take that opportunity, or will they play into the right cross of the Ravens once again, right? Now, on the other side of the ball, this is where I think things get really interesting, because I think Baltimore is seen as some improved, amazing defense at this point, but I just don't think they've played a lot of competition. Like, they played the Steelers twice. They played the Giants. They played Cleveland without Jameis Winston. They played a bunch of bum quarterbacks. We've seen them play good quarterbacks like Joe Burrow, and they got diced up. So I think that their defense is better, but I don't think their defense is necessarily great. Okay, I will say that. I do think that Amari Cooper, the reason you trade for Amari Cooper is for this game. Brandon Stevens is not very good. I thought the Steelers should have attacked him even more than they did. I think Amari Cooper can get after him all day long. I think that's a good matchup for the Bills. I think the Bills have evolved in terms of their passing offense with, the running back position, Ty Johnson, James Cook, since their first meeting, where I think you can take advantage of guys like Malik Harrison in coverage. Even Roquan Smith, I think you can take advantage of him against these running backs or the tight ends of the Bills. The Bills got those tight ends and those running backs to be able to attack those guys. Where I do think the Ravens stack up well is overall with Humphrey and Hamilton in the middle of the field and in the screen game of the Bills. The Ravens do a good job of tackling and taking away those quick throws and those yak opportunities. And Marlon Humphrey's a great tackler, and Kyle Hamilton, sniffs out those plays really well. But I think on the perimeter and with those individual matchups from the running back and the tight end position, I think the Bills can really attack those spots in particular. Even Coleman made a couple big plays against the Ravens last time against Brandon Stevens. So look out for that. Wiggins is also a smaller guy. Coleman might be, we'll see if they put Wiggins. Maybe they try to put Wiggins on Cooper a little bit more, and they try to put, Stevens a little bit more on Coleman or on Hollins or on Shakir. I don't know what they'll try to do, but I do think that Josh should be able to find those matchups and pick on those players in particular. I think this game should be played in the 20s. I think both teams will score. I don't know if it's going to quite get to the 30s just because of time of possession. And I think both teams are going to treat this game like they're going to have to go for like every fourth down in reasonable range. Like I think they're going to go for it a lot in this game. I don't think there's going to be a lot of field goals. The first time around, it was kind of shocking how Kyle Van Noy had a dominant performance against one of the better right tackles this year, Spencer Brown. They were only 4 for 14 on third or fourth down, the Bills. The Bills played really bad in that game. And it's just hard to really take anything away from it other than like Derrick Henry. Like the Bills got to stop Derrick Henry. So like you look back at that, I just don't think it's really indicative of either of the teams, especially when you change the venue and you look at how the teams are playing now. These are both very good teams. I think that it's definitely going to be cold. It's not going to be snowing from what I've seen, but extremely cold. I think the Bills' passing game is just better, and I think that's why they win this game. I think the Ravens will try to run the ball a lot, but if Zay's not able to play, I don't think the Ravens are going to be able to throw the ball and drop back pass that well in this game. I think that McDermott will have some adjustments for the passing game. Lamar has never played that well against McDermott or the Bills in terms of the passing game. And because of the cold weather, I think that Josh has the advantage there. I also think that they'll be able to throw the ball and create more explosives through the air than the Ravens will be able to. I think they've got more plethora of weapons, more ability to attack you in different ways. I do think the Ravens should be able to slow down the Bills in the run game to a certain degree, but I think that Allen is going to be running a lot himself. I think that the running backs are going to be very involved as receivers, almost as an extension of the running game. And the Ravens tend to play a lot of zone. So I think that's going to, it might be better to play Allen in zone than man for sure. But I think Allen has grown so much in terms of his ability to not, do negative plays, not throw the ball to the other team. I just think there's a different level to him right now. So I think the Bills win. I think the game's going to be really good. I think either team can win, but I'm going to go Buffalo 28-24. Something like that, 28-24, 27-24, maybe 31-28, 34-28, something like that. But this should be an absolute battle, a show. I think the home team wins, though. I think home field matters. And I think we're going to hear Mr. Brightside at the end of the day. So those are my picks for NFL Divisional Round. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, Gronk spike the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. I will be streaming each and every NFL Divisional Round game. Thank you so much for everybody that tuned in. We have over 100 people in right now, so make sure to like the video, guys, to help out the stream because we did have to cancel the first one. Shout out Singh, Big Al, Buy Stocks, ELB, Ferg, Samuel, No Bones, Underground, Durkant, and Jeremy, Mr. Fulton, Antonio, what else? Michael. Thank you guys for watching, man. Jordan Hunter, Robert, everybody that was here. Bill's Chick. We'll see you later. Peace, guys.